So give us a recap of the headlines here that are most material, Ryan.
Yeah, well, we just heard from the French president and the German chancellor. They just held a joint press conference, and they talked a lot about Syria. They said that they spoke with Vladimir Putin earlier today. They told him that the German chancellor said the main target of his airstrikes must be the Islamic State. The French president pointed out that only one of the strikes thus far has been against Islamic State. The other one's against other groups, more moderate groups that are fighting against the Assad regime. They also said that Mr. Assad eventually must go. I think Angela Merkel was a bit more accommodating in her comments about that, saying that at some point he will have to give up his job in his current capacity if he's going to remain in the country. So it was very much about Syria, what they had to say. But, of course, this meeting that they just had was supposed to be about Ukraine. The German chancellor said there was no link between Ukraine and Syria, and that thus far in their conversations with the Russian president and the Ukrainian president, all of who have just left, they made a lot of progress, and things are in a much more good state right now than they were before. We watched the Russian president leave. I shouted a question. He ignored it. We watched the Ukrainian president leave. They left without speaking, and that is what we have so far.
Ryan, what is President Putin's strategy at this point?
You know, he wants to be appreciated as a world leader. I think he also thinks that Assad was in danger of getting removed from office. He was losing ground. He was losing his coastal territory. And I think the Russians felt that there was a vacuum there that they could fill, that they could prop up Assad and hit Islamic State at the same time, but prop up Assad because the U.S. strategy wasn't working. You know, I'm not sure that he really cares about winning over Europe and ending the sanctions in the process, but he does care about appearing like he can get things done and entering the world stage.
30 seconds left, Ryan. What is the next step then for these bilateral talks if we don't get beyond these niceties?
I guess the next step is there going to be any coordination between the Russians and the U.S.-led coalition in Syria? And the answer to that is we just don't know. The United States and Russia are off to a terrible start in coordinating in Syria. It looks more like a spat between the two countries at this point. And the most that anybody can hope for is a so-called deconflicting of the two sides, where each kind of carves out their own little niche and bombs what they want, but they don't coordinate together.